Good morning and welcome to another edition of Carpod Church. The seas are calm, the weather still. Today is dawning and we hope you enjoy these next few moments as we gather our thoughts and reflections for the day ahead. For some of us a challenging day, a day of sadness and loss, and others a day of excitement and celebrations. So our thoughts continue to focus on love through the book of Ruth. And today we're looking at a word you might not be familiar with, agape. It's one of the words in Greek for love, but C.S. Lewis called it the highest love. It's that selfless, sacrificial love, that unconditional love. And we see it in Ruth. We see it in her giving up her prospects, her future, her life to stay with Naomi. We see it as they settle back into Bethlehem, as they realize that as two women, they're in a very precarious situation, very dangerous. They have to provide for themselves. They have to find ways of storing up food and being looking out for one another. And one of the common practices in those days was when there was harvesting to be done. And in the Middle East, there's two harvests. There's a spring harvest and an autumn harvest. And it was the time of the spring harvest, so around this time of year. And Ruth decides that she will go into the fields. And what used to happen was the harvesters would cut down the wheat and they would, some would fall. And then women from the village would follow and collect it. And that was important for the community survival. So the landowner made his profits, but there was that which was left behind was to be collected by those in need. Now, it was dangerous work because those women on the fields would have been vulnerable to attack. They would also have been vulnerable to jealousies and all the struggles that would have been there. Ruth, as a Moabitess, would have been very new to the village. They would have known Naomi, but they wouldn't have known her. And they would be very wary of her. So she would be very much on her own now. But knowing and giving of herself in sacrificial love, knowing that Naomi needed to be fed and there needed to be sustenance provided, she does this again, another selfless sacrificial act. And just by chance, she ends up in the field of a man called Boaz. And Boaz is actually a kinsman of Naomi's husband. But Ruth knows nothing about this. She goes into the field and she starts to work. She works all day because there wouldn't be much grain that would have fallen off the sheaves as they were gathered. And so she would have worked, taking a small rest under the shade of a tree and then going back to her work. And Boaz, the landowner, notices her, probably because she looks different. She stands out. And he goes to his foreman and says, "Who is this new person that's joining the gatherers?" And he explains that it is Ruth and the daughter-in-law of Naomi. And Boaz actually goes up to talk to her, and because he has recognized, he has heard what Ruth has done, and he's been really moved by this. So he goes to talk to her, and he says to her, stay in these fields. Don't go to other fields where you'll be even in more danger. Stay where you are. Follow the harvesters here, and they will look after you. And he goes back to his foreman and says, make sure nobody, causes any trouble for her whatsoever. Make sure that she's safe. And not only that, make sure that you shake the sheaves a little bit more so that more grain will fall on the lines that she's following. He has recognized in Ruth that agape, that sacrificial love that she has shown for Naomi. But he also, in his turn, is beginning to show that love too, in being so kind and looking out for her. Of course, the lesson here for us is clear. We have a duty, we have a commandment, we're compelled by God's love to respond in a way that actually transforms the lives of others, that gives of ourselves, that is sacrificial and is unconditional. And that shows in our actions as well as our words. Good morning.